first time we've ever talked about Flavor
Absolutely.
Flav on the channel.
Yep.
So we are popping the Flavor Flav cherry here. Um,
Whoa.
yeah. Flavor Flav has never been talked about on Conscious Approach, but there's a first time for everything. Flavor Flav has petitioned to have guns banned in the U.S. Is in a passionate, op-ed, so to speak. He's talked about how, he just feels some type of way about the direction the country is going in terms of, you know, um, the culture around, violence and whatnot, and how he fears for his children going to school and all of this other stuff. And so this kind of hit the waves a bit because it's Flavor Flav not being a minstrel show, as he usually is, but rather speaking poignantly about how he feels about the direction that the country needs to go when it comes to firearms. So to provide some context here, this says Flavor Flav calls on guns to be banned in America. Flavor Flav has made a public plea for the government to ban access to guns across America. The Public Enemy legend penned an op-ed for Newsweek and described how he feels guns have made the country less safe. He wrote, I fear for my kids when I drop them off at school. Our schools aren't safe and our kids aren't safe. This is because gun protection laws are weak. Guns are falling into the hands of the wrong people. I would know. I went to jail because of guns. I ended up on Rikers Island. So I am speaking from firsthand experience. Fear and power are two of the biggest emotions that drive us. America is being built on fear. You have people who are scared, and these people are fighting for gun rights to protect themselves. They wouldn't have to protect themselves if all guns were banned. Fear is a powerful short term motivator. We need to flip it so it can break through to be a positive and valuable resource. Let our fear of losing our children be more powerful than our fear of our next door neighbor. Legendary hype man continued. Right now, it's too easy for kids to grab their parents' guns. They are motivated by fear of being disliked, fear of not being accepted, fear of being made fun of. It makes them feel powerless. Some choose to take their power back and show up their peers and show up those peers. This happens so often. We have started to become numb to it as a society. It's barely in the news if it's less than a handful of people who were unalived, and then the news cycle moves on to something else. The hits just keep on coming. Uh, school school shootings are normalized. The lack of gun laws has created a violence epidemic here in the United States that is nowhere else in the world. This is domestic. Uh, I don't know if they forgot the T there. This is domestic, or is that a word? Errorism? Is that a word? I've
Nah.
never heard that before. Flav concluded by saying his and Chuck D's concerns about guns led to a new Public Enemy track. I hope this song, March Madness, reignites the conversation. I hope this song sparks change. I hope this anthem gives a voice to those who feel powerless against the system of power and greed. I hope we can come together to create a wall of unity with peace and togetherness that is so strong no one can divide and tear us down. So that got picked up by a lot of media outlets, but that was posted to Newsweek as via his contribution. I'm pretty sure he had somebody write that for him. But what did you think about Flavor Flav's plea to have weapons banned in the U.S.?
But before I go, man, why you think somebody wrote that for him, bro?
The guy wears a giant clock around his neck, so you know
Uh,
I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy, but
funny,
I don't
man.
take somebody who wears a giant clock around their neck seriously from a journalistic standpoint.
I hear you. I mean, I guess my take is similar to that. So the interesting thing about Public Enemy is that Public Enemy, uh, they made some strong songs. Chuck D, whenever I hear him speak, um, he's on brand. Um, if he's ever said anything that was off brand, it's so rare that I can't even really remember, which is pretty good in my world. I remember one crazy thing he said, but I can't pinpoint one crazy thing Chuck D has actually said. So he did run around with Flavor, and Flavor, as much as a minstrel show as he is He was no dummy himself, even though he played one. However, throughout the years, he did become more of a caricature, which is hard to believe because he was a character when he first came out. A la Flavor of Love and that whole debacle, and what that has contributed to society. Um, Now, here's my thing on guns. Um, I really think that the gun banning conversation is, I don't want to say pointless. I would like to say it's a lot more nuance than guns bad. And if you take guns away, then bad things are going to stop happening. That's not true.
Right, right, right.
And all the stuff that he was talking about in that article, school incidents and this incident, that incident, all of those things have its own root cause and has nothing to do with a firearm. And so if you want to have a grandstand moment where you say if this was eliminated, life would be better in America, then those root cause for those various things that you was naming, like school things or this thing or that thing, whatever's going on in gang culture or whatever. If you get to the root cause of those things and have that same kumbaya or whatever, and eliminate whatever those individual root causes are, then those problems will go away. But unfortunately, we live in a society that feeds into all of these various root causes. So as a result, people end up grabbing anything that causes violence and then bestows that upon people. So in the UK, your boy made news out there. Top five made news out there,
I
in
saw.
the so out there in the UK, man, they not allowed to slang them hammers. So they got to do a lot of sword wielding. So there's a lot of stabbings out there. You know, and so the reason why they're stabbing so much is because, well, they can't fire. So the same thing will happen here. People are just going to find alternatives to get out this level of frustration. Now, granted, you can say that there'll be less this, less that, or whatever, but at the same time, the violence won't stop. And on top of that, there's all kinds of things that are illegal in this country, and people still find their hands on them. So, and if somebody is really out of their mind, which a school, um, a school
Incident.
yeah incident person, that person is out of their mind. Somebody that would light a fire in an Idaho wooded area so firefighters could come out and then unalive them, that person's already crazy, so they're willing to do any darn thing. So classic pulling at the heartstrings. What about the kids? X, Y, and the Z. I'm in favor of people having uh, their firearms. I'm not against a ban. I just think I think that people in today's day and age, where there are so many radical people out here, you having something at your house to protect yourself from other radical people, I don't think that's such a bad idea. But what are your thoughts, man, on Favor Flav saying that, hey, man, guns bad and we need to ban them? What are your thoughts, bro?
I largely agree with you. I understand where he's coming from, and I feel like a lot of people feel like this because it's a last recourse. I think that this. I think the gun conversation is highly nuanced. Of course, I agree with what you said there, and it ultimately amounts to like putting a dressing over an open wound instead of treating the wound. To me,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, it's it's so your point about addressing the root cause is the main point that I wanted to make here.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that if you removed firearms from the equation, I believe one can suggest or surmise that there will be less loss of life on a mass level. And to certain people, that's enough. But it's not going to make the violence go away. And oftentimes, people are still going to find the means to get what they need, even if it's illegal.
Exactly.
So I don't really think that that addresses much. I think what you have to do is address the root cause of what you know sort of propels people to act out in various ways in which they feel like they have no other option but to do stuff like this.
Hmm.
And I feel like our society is just dealing with an existential crisis of just being inundated constantly with all sorts of subjective messaging that puts people in certain emotional states. And for individuals who are on the precipice of acting out on those various emotional states, one too many one too much exposure to a lot of those messages causes them to act out. So I kind of feel like that's what needs to be addressed, but no one wants to address that because there's too much money to be made in media. Like, I feel like that's what needs to be fixed. In my opinion, nowadays, people, and I've said this before, people have way too much access to media and subjective messaging to the point that you could corral yourself in your own personal individual echo chamber and only be exposed to what you want to expose, thus cultivating a society of individuals who sort of mire in their own form of individual fundamentalism based on the kind of stuff that they want to believe in. And because you can control the flow of access of information that comes to you, but receive that flow of access 24/7, because we're all addicted to our devices and we're all addicted to our phones, whenever an individual encounters the antithesis of their own brand of fundamentalism, they react towards that antithesis aggressively. Now, sometimes that aggressive reaction comes in the form of online comment sections where people are just arguing back and forth. But sometimes that reaction to the antithesis of your fundamentalism gets manifested physically in terms of arguments, shouting matches. Sometimes they result in fights. Sometimes they result in people grabbing weapons. So if you don't address that, which is a large, obvious, huge, overarching conversation in terms of how do we deal with the existential threat of people constantly being overtly inundated with all sorts of subjective messaging 24/7, and you can't escape it. It's on your phone. To people who still watch TV, it's on most television shows. If you like to stream, if you like to listen to podcasts, it's one of the reasons why I had to move away from dating and relationship podcasts. I found myself dwelling in my own form of personal fundamentalism when it comes to my outlook on relationships and women.
Hmm.
Part of this, we talk often about the epidemic of men who hate women, feel as though their problems are women's faults, don't have the requisite social skills to be more successful with women, so they blame women for all their problems. Part of their own personal brand of fundamentalism comes from the fact that they seek answers via inundating themselves with all of these dating and relationship podcasts on YouTube and Spotify and various other platforms, where they're basically being told that if they're not making six figures a year, if they're not of a certain height, and if they don't have a certain amount of certain kinds of looks in terms of aesthetics or how they dress or how they move or how they talk or how they act, if they don't fit a particular kind of profile, there's nothing that they can do. They're going to be unsuccessful with women. You don't think a guy who's listening to that kind of messaging all the time is going to develop some kind of a complex in the world? And at some point, he's going to act on that complex. And that's just one example. The whole dating and relationship apparatus is just one example of how somebody can become entrenched in their own personal brand of fundamentalism.
Hmm.
So until you address this media crisis that people clearly do not have a level of responsibility for being able to manage themselves, we're going to continue to figure out surface level ways to address deep seated problems. Like, let's ban all the weapons. And I agree with you. That doesn't really address the root. It's just a band aid over an open sore.
Exactly.
And the sore is not going to heal unless you address that thing. And there's plenty more where that came from, man. I mean, you have to monitor and measure how you come into contact and consume the messages that you consume, or else they'll drive you down a rabbit hole. And if you go too far down the rabbit hole, you might not be able to get yourself out of it. And if you're a bit unhinged in terms of being able to manage how you emotionally confront your various rabbit holes in your own little psyche in terms of how you feel about certain things, you might project that in ways that are dangerous to yourself and other people. So I think it sounds nice and cute to talk about we need to do this when it comes to guns. We need to ban this. We need to get rid of that. But it's not really addressing the threat existentially that is causing a lot of people to act on this stuff. And until a lot of that stuff is addressed, I don't feel like any of this stuff is going to stop.
Yeah, man. 1000%, bro. And you know, coming up, probably in my, I don't know, my late teenage years, early 20s, um, just listening to various radio stations and stuff like that, where some people might call it conservative. I don't know. And the gun conversation would come up whenever something radical would happen in the news, and so now there's this whole gun debate. And the thing that they would always say is, the reason why we had the right to bear arms is to protect ourselves from the government. And back in late '99, early 2000, you kind of felt like, that's true. They got guns. We should have guns too to protect ourselves. Checks and balances. Well, not anymore. Not anymore, man. Um, what did he say? So, and I think I don't know if I referenced it on here before, but Andre 3000, bro, he had a bar back on the Aliens album, and I think when I googled it, it's the song Babylon. But he was saying that hey man, they made those gaps. Um, and he said they probably got some stuff that'll blow out our back from where they stay at. And that was back in the late '90s. And now, with all of this advanced technologies, um, all of this stuff where, well, we have the right to bear arms to protect ourselves from the government. I think that the arms race that America has been in over the last century has put them in such a position that, your little 9mm ain't gonna do nothing um to the stuff that they have. So that argument of us why we should have it, um that's null and void at this point. The reason why I think it is important, is that there are very crazy people in the world, and having something like that for protection, I think, is necessary. Now everybody's not going to be on that page of protection. Some people learn martial arts to actually hurt other people, when the actual practice of martial arts is literally self-defense. So you gotta, it's it's a tool, and I think it's a useful tool against crazies. So so if there's a gun ban or something like that, and somebody's really out here wielding knives like that, you know what I'm saying? Now I gotta sit there and wield a knife. I'm not doing that. You know, it's like, get off of my porch or you're done. You know what I'm saying? So I think in those contexts, yeah, I think I still think we needed to protect ourselves from each other. I do believe that. But overall, yeah, my stance is root cause, and that's always the like I mentioned, the tear jerker thing, to just say, oh, what about the kids? This, and this, and that. But y'all don't say, what about the kids when y'all have the wildest stuff streaming on all these platforms, whether it's music, TV, they little Nickelodeon awards. Man, our girl Tyler, you saw her hosting the Nickelodeon awards.
I didn't watch it, but I know she hosted it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm on TikTok, bro, and they just showing us, you know, what Tyler's got going on, and she's wearing, scantily clad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then she brought out Ice Spice.
Well, I mean, yeah, they make kids music. So
Well, I understand that, but still, you know what
I'm
I'm
being,
saying?
I'm being
I
facetious,
know
of
what you
course.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm saying it's that's where outrage should be at.
Yeah,
You
sure.
that should be what about the kids for that?
Yeah.
But there is no, that's what this country does though. It's the last domino situation where you look at the last domino and you go, oh, what's going on here? But
Yeah.
you don't see the subsequent dominoes that led up to that, nor
Right.
the hand that pushed it. And so everybody wants to sit there and get into this pharmaceutical, as you mentioned, let's just cure the symptoms and
Yeah.
not the root cause. So this take that he has, which I mean, I don't know. This is the last thing I'll say as far as Flavor Flav. Now that we have new terms, we have updated terms for people like him, and what he did there was an attempt to influence. And Flavor Flav is an influencer, and so I don't know who tapped him to feel obligated to write about gun control, but yeah, him unmuting to, I mean, when do you ever hear of him having any kind of social takes?
Yeah. It seemed pretty random.
It's pretty
Yeah.
random. So for him to have this take of all things and to say, hey guys, blah 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 blah, hey man, we're already losing the rights to a lot of things. I'm not trying to lose that one either. So y'all can bark about something else, but if y'all want to curb school incidents or gang violence in the street, I would say that there's other things that need to be done instead of removing guns.
Yeah. I mean, and that's well said. I agree with all of that. I believe in freedom, but I do believe that freedom. I believe there is a responsibility that comes along with it. I think that if you cannot handle your various civil liberties and freedom with a certain level of responsibility, then you should not be able to enjoy them. It's the classic Spider-Man line with great power comes great responsibility. Everybody wants to have superpowers, but if you can't handle being a superhero, heroically, you should be stripped of your powers. You shouldn't have them. They should go to someone who can handle the responsibility. And I've always been somebody who was pro freedom, pro everything, let people be able to make their own decisions. But I think it's become quite clear in recent history that there are certain aspects of freedom that most humans cannot handle responsibly. And look, I'm not trying to get draconian here. I still believe in freedom for the most part, but things need to be regulated, because if you leave people up to their own devices, there will be bedlam. You can't. People cannot be allowed to do whatever they want to do. You can't allow it. We're not responsible enough for that. And so the reason why I bring that point up is to just address this fair market, easy access to all forms and manners of information and media. And I'm not saying that that's the sole reason as to why people develop their own personal brands of fundamentalism, but it is a very substantial contributing factor. It does not take a rocket scientist to know the more time you spend on Instagram, the more time you spend on the TikTok, the more time you spend on Facebook, the more time you spend on YouTube, you are opening yourself up to more and more instances of feeling too short, too broke, not good looking enough, not talented enough, not smart enough, just not having it enough. Your car is not good enough. You don't travel enough. You don't take enough trips. You don't fly enough. You're not complete enough because you haven't had kids. Your personal life isn't good enough because you're not married or you don't have a significant other. Like, these are all various forms of messaging that creep into the various recesses of our respective psyches. And depending on how firm you are and how solid you are in terms of your mental, it can cause a degradation of your mental status over time. And that is what's causing people to go crazy out here.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what's causing people to go crazy. If you don't figure out a way to deal with that problem, that crisis, all the gun bans in the world ain't gonna solve much, in my opinion. You're still gonna have a lot of deranged, unhinged people operating in society who have no business walking around people. You're still gonna get cut off in traffic. You're still gonna get people who are aggressively acting towards you for no apparent reason. You're
Mm-hmm.
still going to get people who have no respect for others in public spaces. You're still going to have people who want to fight you. What's going on with them? What are they dealing with on a daily basis? What are they consuming that's causing them to respond in this manner? Trust me, it isn't because there's a weapon there. There's stuff going on over an extended period of time that is causing a gradual decline in their various mental statuses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the first person to use mental health as the excuse for everything, because that's become a popular thing to do. Let's just blame everything on mental health. Mental health is go see a therapist that. And I'm a proponent of therapy, but there are certain basic elementary things that you can address without that stuff. And I think a lot of people are just dealing too much. They're trafficking in too much suggestive messaging. And it's okay, because in the society that we live in, where everything is a fair market, you know, everything is go to market, make money, make the billions of dollars, stay private, then go public, sell the stock options, get the IPO. Everything is about the money and the money and the money and the money and the money. And in lieu of that, people are getting hurt because
Mm-hmm.
no one wants to regulate it because there's too much money to be made from it. So long as that's the case, and we all want to be free enough to consume this stuff at our own leisure, these problems are going to persist. So him and others like him can write all of that mumbo jumbo that they want. It's really not going to fix it, because, as you said, it's not going to address the root cause.
Yeah, 1,000, man. But hey guys, let us know down in the comment section, man. You feel like we're off base? You feel like we're some, I don't know, man, some gun grabbing I don't know, terrorist. What they got?
Errorism, errorism.
Oh my goodness. Hey man, let us know down in the comment section, guys. Or do you guys agree with Sir Flavor Flav here, man? He might have some valid points. Let us know down in the comment section.
It will on the surface lessen the sheer amount of violence. But I don't know. I've always been a proponent of addressing root causes. And that doesn't address the root cause, because you're still going to have a lot of people who are abjectly miserable, walking
Agreed.
around out here, just living, being miserable, and not addressing why they're miserable. They're just going to continue to walk around living with their misery. And I do believe that is a lot of people nowadays living with misery.
Yep. Crazy.
Yeah, but shout out to Flavor Flav, man. Um, look forward to more of your op-ed pieces and news.
Yeah, man. Like, what the hell? Hey, man. Shout out to Chuck D, man. Skr.
Yeah.